Good morning. So, we're back. I made it in time to do my live before I had to go to work. So today I want to talk about choices and how we need to stop shaming what people choose to do. So, this kind of came up because last night me and my husband were talking, and I liked asking questions about things like who he used to be, and I usually open the floor for him to ask me questions, but he always asks more questions like, who do you want to be? And so that's always fun. But I had a moment where I'm just like, I wasn't sure who I wanted to be, what my ideal career would be, and it kind of really got me thinking, and just kind of without thinking, I just started talking. And what I said was, I don't know, I've never seen myself career-wise. Like, I've never had a vision of like, oh, I want to be a doctor one day, I want to be a pediatrician, or I wanted to be a scientist, or I wanted to be a computer specialist. And I didn't have a very specific idea of what I wanted to be, and every time I did, it always changed. I remember when I was little, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I still think that's really cool, but it didn't click, I guess, while I was in school. And just kind of like looking at everything, and I finally said, I was like, the only thing for me that has ever been hyper clear is I knew that I wanted to be a mom someday, that I wanted to have a family one day. I wanted to find somebody that I really loved and I could see myself having a family with, getting married, and one day having our family. That was the only thing that I knew for certain that I wanted to be a mom. And I almost said it with like a little bit of embarrassment, like this is the only thing that I could think of, this is the only thing that, and I think that comes from this idea that I should be more. So let me explain that. Ever since I was young, I remember people were constantly telling me that I had all of this potential, that I was an A+ student. When I got to high school, it was probably a little bit closer to A's and B's because I found subjects that I wasn't as strong in, but I still was a really good student. I was number 12 in my class, and when I went to college, it was a lot of the same thing. Granted, I got a C because I am not good at political science, but I was still doing well in my last year two, I was on the dean's list. So I was always just a really good student, and I was considered a bright student. So what came with that is that I got a lot of, you have all of this potential, you can do whatever you want, you can go and run a company, you can go and be the head of something, and you can go and do all of these really big, beautiful things that I think are quite amazing for women to be doing, and I'm so proud that we can be doing now. But that wasn't what I wanted. And I do remember one instance, I guess maybe 3 years ago now, that I was talking to one of my classmates who'd graduated before me, and we were on an internship, and he asked me what my plan was. Because he knew that while I was on this internship, I wasn't going in the middle of my school. I was taking my last 2 classes while I was there, and I was going to still be graduating that year. And so his question was, what is your plan after you graduate? Like, what do you want to do? Well, how is this internship going to help you? It was a very, like, intense conversation topic for dinner, but I remember I don't know, because at the time I was dating this guy who I really liked, and I was thinking that this might be it. It needed to work. I'm not gonna lie. I remember thinking that our relationship needed a lot of work, but I thought it could work. And so I was like, well, I guess it depends on where this is going. And I gestured to me and him because he'd been visiting at the time. I was like, it depends on where this is going, because I would actually like to prioritize this. If this is gonna work and he wants to stay in our hometown, then I can stay there. Or if it's not going to work, I can kind of go anywhere and figure out what I want to do from there. And that's kind of the decision I was wrestling with, which ultimately our relationship did end, obviously. But that was my answer. And I got a very, you were one of the top in our group. Like, you were one of the ones that could go and do stuff. Why are you following this guy around? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I kind of felt like I'd been dismissed in that sense. And I've kind of mentioned it before to a couple different people that I really just, that was what was clear to me. And so eventually I just stopped talking about it. I stopped bringing it up. I stopped telling people that this is what I really wanted. I guess it wasn't good enough. And I kind of always held that in the back of my head, that this is what I wanted, but I never kind of told people anymore. I just kept it to myself. I was really quiet about it. And it wasn't the first time. It's just the most recent time that I remember. And it's happened multiple times. And every time, like, people are asking me, like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And every time I have a career, I think of how I could fit being a mom into it. So one of the really amazing things with my current job is that I will usually work sometime between 11 and 1:30-ish, 2 o'clock. So that time period, and it's not the same exact times, it's just somewhere in there. And it's, our situation right now allows me to do this, and it's amazing. And so I'm getting this extra income. They pay really well, but it allows me to be home more. So if I wanted to have kids, that's how I think of things these days. I make that kind of mental plan, like, okay, if I had kids, how would I do this? How often would I be able to? Would I be able to do both? And it's taken me a really long time. I'm still processing that is my goal, and trying to not be ashamed or embarrassed by it. And I think that comes from with this big movement of, you know, women's empowerment and being a feminist and all of that, looking for equality. I think we forgot, not everybody, but a lot of us have forgotten that part of that is we get to decide what we want. I don't have to be an executive somewhere. I don't have to be like this powerful woman in a big position. I can be a powerful woman and be a mom. And that's okay, because that's my decision. I have a choice to do that. It's not forced on me. It's something that I want. And we have to stop telling women that they have to be bigger than life because we have a right to now. Because at the end of the day, what we're fighting for is a right to choose. Because before, it used to be that I got married, so I belong to my husband, and I have to do everything he says and do whatever he wants. And if he wants kids, I have to bear his kids, as many as he wants. And I didn't really have a say. But that's not the same today. Today, we have a choice. We can do whatever we want. I don't belong to my husband. We belong to each other. We're partners. I don't have to do everything he says. It's a choice. If he asks me to do something, I can say yes or no. Granted, a lot of times I say yes because I ask him to do things too, and he says yes. It's a give and take. It's not a requirement of me. This isn't all I'm allowed to do. But parts of this are things that I want to do. I want to have kids. And I really like the idea of being able to stay home and be with them the way my mom was. And my mom is amazing. She used to schedule us so clearly. We would get up and we would eat, and then we would have like a craft hour, and she would have a project ready for us, and then we would have like a reading hour, and then we would have like this dance hour, and there's still videos somewhere of us dancing to like Mozart and Shania Twain. And then we would have lunch, and then we would paint, and she had these big smocks for us, and we would have like an easel and finger paint all over the place. And it was never a dull moment, and it was a full-time gig. And I love my childhood for that. And I want to be able to do that for my kids, because if I could be half the mom she was, I think they'd be fine. But that was my goal. And I know that's not everyone's goal. Like my young, she's really uncomfortable with the idea of small babies. So she's mentioned before that if she ever had kids, she would like want to go and adopt a kid who could say, "Hey mom, I'm starving," or "Hey, I need a pee." So that's not what she wants necessarily. And my other sister is very ambitious, and she's, I think, an administrator somewhere, or she's filling in for an administrator, and she's doing her thing. And I've done some of that. I've had lots of different jobs, and I've had lots of different responsibilities, and proven that I'm really good. But I would leave that to be a mom. And it's really hard to admit. And it's a little easy right now because I can't see all of you, and everybody does it. Granted, I've heard stories of like, she just feeds the kid and makes sure that they don't fall off things. And that's a different end of the spectrum, but it's making sure that they're clean. That's really exciting for me. And that's something that I really want for myself. And like I mentioned, my husband's really supportive of it. I kind of mentioned that that's something that I wanted, and we've been talking about, okay, well, when we come to that, we'll schedule ourselves. We'll figure out what we want to do. If you need to, he might have flexibility when we do to be able to go into work late, because they do like a full 3 shifts, so he might just come in a little later, overlap more with second shift, and they'd be okay with that. Or he could move to second shift, which he would go in to work right around when I would be getting out of work anyway, on the days that I work. So we have options, and we've talked about it, and he's trying to help make sure that I can do what I need to do, but also be able to stay at home. Because while we don't necessarily need this income, it makes everything a lot easier, and we would like to keep it. And I've been really fortunate that everybody at work is super nice and super kind, and when we get there, I feel like we could figure it out together. And this whole journey has been mom, but wants to be a working mom. That's a hard decision to make, because working moms still have to work and come home and figure things out. And they don't miss their kids any less. This is just what they want to do. And that's not a bad decision. Some people want to be stay-at-home moms. Some people don't want to be moms. But the whole point of this movement of equality and feminism is that we get to have that choice. And we need to stop shaming women into these decisions. And women, we gotta stop shaming each other. If you came to me and said, "Hey, no, I want to be a working mom. What you have isn't what I want," I'd say that's fine. That's your choice. But don't take away mine by telling me that I need to be doing what you're doing. Because that's not how this works. The whole point is we get to decide who we want to be, not who each other should be. Thanks for listening.